Chris Young, and currently I'm going to leave it to my very capable colleagues to speak to you because I'm trying to connect. Oh, now hold on, something might be happening on Instagram. Something, yeah, it is. It is. Oh my word! So
We're
if
live on
I
Instagram.
nearly, we are so very. Don't
Not
you?
quite yet.
We're not quite there yet, but hold on. So there we are. We are now live on Instagram, or my name isn't Jiminy Cricket. Now, overwhelmed,
Oh my goodness, I just had lots of notifications saying, "No, we're live."
overwhelmed with success thus far. I'm going to go and have a look at Facebook.
I mean, are you sure about Instagram?
It's easy, Tiger. Yes, it's working. Shush.
Can't see it. It's not came up.
Oh, it has. It has. Don't you give me that rubbish.
But it hasn't.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So, what do you mean it hasn't? It told me it.
Come up on Facebook. Well, it's come up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Twitch.
Okay. So I'm now going live on uh, a Facebook. So I don't know. It feels a bit like. Does anybody like just don't?
Oh well, no, I tell a lie. We are live on Instagram.
There we are. Oh, ye of little faith.
Yes.
Yeah. Ah, you just.
And we're live on Facebook.
We are live everywhere. Well, that's been a great night. Thanks everyone for joining us. I'm going to stop while we're ahead. You've been a great audience. Thanks for tuning in. For those of you who don't know what the hell we're doing, which is sort of very similar to what we're at, this is Square Pegs presenting What the Fuck. And the What the Fuck isn't supposed to be the technological bits. What the Fuck is about people who have mental health stuff going on, people with disabilities, people like you, like me, who are affected by the world on a regular basis, where you wake up in the morning and if you have the audacity to watch the news or something like that and you go, oh, what the fuck, then this, my friends, is for you. I'm Chris Young, and these are my wonderful co-presenters. These are my wonderful co-presenters,
I'm, I'm Sim.
Siobhan and Sim. And we'll be dragging what we're doing this week is we're reflecting on last week's live stream where we interviewed Michael, who is an ex-copper, and Tony, who is an amp. Now, for those of you who don't know what an amp is, it's not a unit of measurement in electricity. Oh no, it's an approved mental health practitioner, somebody who works with people with a mental health problems who may or may not require detention. Now, I'd argue a lot of people don't require detention, but that's not where I'm going to go. Anyway, so we had a long conversation. Well, when I say a long conversation, we only have an hour, so we talked for an hour. And I think a few things kind of sprung up from that. Now, I could completely lead the way and lead my two eager witnesses, but I'm not going to do that. Now, Siobhan is involved in has been around in this mental health arena for a while, but Sim hasn't. Now, so as such, as our canary down the coal mine, you were watching it last time, and what were your thoughts as things streamed by you?
Without sounding too cliche with the title of our podcast, but the question, what the fuck, did come to mind quite a few times during that podcast. And I'll explain, like, it was all, both of them were using language that I am not familiar with, abbreviations that I'm not personally that I know, and
Mm.
sections that are kind of, yeah, that I haven't got much knowledge about.
Stuff that
And
you'd never even heard of, and
yeah,
I reckon you weren't alone. I mean, to be fair, you didn't even know the role of an approved mental health practitioner actually existed.
I
And
didn't,
why would you?
and I didn't know what powers they had,
No,
and I didn't
no.
realize they were able to, in some cases, detain people,
Yeah.
and so it was. I was learning a lot from that podcast.
Sure.
Um, I did have to get Google up and look at some of the
Well, like section 136, with section
exactly,
135,
yeah,
section
yeah,
2, section 3, section
and
140, because there was a cascade of stuff.
it was, and to and it felt like it was quite a lot of information for one podcast.
Mm, mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, how did you both? You both were on the live. How did you both kind of?
Well, we had our debrief afterwards, Siobhan. Do you want to sort of say how you felt?
Yeah, it was. I think we both kind of came away from it quite frazzled,
We did, yeah.
quite overwhelmed, and yeah, I mean, we did say what the fuck was that, because just as Sim touched on there, it was so much information kind of just thrown out there in such a short space of time. And you again using all these sort of sections when actually, I have no knowledge of what any of that is.
Mm, mm.
I know kind of a bit about sort of backgrounds, thinking about mental health and kind of that sort of stuff, but I don't know the ins and outs. So even I was just like, I have no idea. So for someone else to kind of be sitting watching that with absolutely no prior knowledge or nothing at all, like, yeah, it felt really quite inaccessible.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
it was just, yeah, and I just kind of felt it was really kind of hard to try and kind of interject as well and get our kind of what we wanted to get across in it, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I think you've nailed it there, and which makes me. I agree with everything you said. I mean, I was a social worker for 17 years, and I think I've kind of made it my policy to not quite ignore what sections are, but to avoid language and abbreviations that I think people aren't going to understand. And even if you tell them, you what I think it's right person, right person, right care. Yeah, RPRC, and stuff like that. I think it's important that we don't abbreviate things in the future and constantly refer back to it and say what this is supposed to be. And I mean the whole idea, now that I've looked it up and done a video on it, available on our Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you get your media from. Um, it's not quite a minefield, and it's not even rocket science, but to be hit with it in the middle of a conversation, it felt difficult. So I think as a group of people, doing running the live stream, I think we need to think about preparing our guests and also really considering what our audience requires. Um, so if we were to do something like that again, what do you think would work better? Um,
I mean, we kind of had that conversation, didn't we? Sort of a few days afterwards, and I think Yeah, I think definitely kind of having that sort of brief beforehand and actually, I suppose, setting the expectations for them about what it is that we want from that. Because this is our space. This is the people that we're obviously wanting to represent and kind of be involved in that space. So we need to make sure that that is inclusive and accessible to them, and it's about us. I think we had this conversation about calling people in, calling people out, which is
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
what we're doing, and that's what we want to do. But I think definitely we need to make sure that we are kind of leading that, and I felt like that was kind of lost
mm,
last week. And I think the kind of other thing that really struck me was that just like going back to the sort of sections and stuff, and the people that are if you're at that point of your sort of mental health, you're a very vulnerable place, and how are you to even know that they are actually following the law and doing what they're supposed to?
yeah,
So I think
yeah.
just not knowing what that knowledge is or not having understand, nobody actually explaining it to you. So how do you actually know that they are doing what they're supposed to as well? And again, I think just that came from when I was trying to obviously talk about my experience and then sort of finding out, well, actually, no, they shouldn't have done that. So, I didn't know that. So I think we really need to be very mindful of, yeah, just who our audience is, what we want to get from that space, from, invite people on.
I suppose the interesting thing, just going back to that, is that this feeling that you know there's an expectation that we're almost professional mad people, and in that environment, um, we should know what's going on. But the thing is, we don't. Um, and especially when you're mentally unwell, it sort of it makes it even more difficult.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's tricky. What about you, Sim? What do you think?
Oh, well, question, just wondered when they were explaining, trying to explain the different sections and everything, did that answer some of your questions about your own kind of experiences with it all? Or
No, like when I kind of mentioned about one of my experiences, it kind of felt very dismissed. I don't know if that's the right word, like, but it was kind of, well, I can't really comment on that. I wasn't there, and then quickly moved on to basically throwing more sort of sections and stuff. And I was like, that's not really what I was trying to get at. It was kind of, I was really wanting to get an answer from him to say, but actually, no, that's fucking wrong. That should not have happened to you.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I really hoped for. And to kind of not get that was quite disappointing.
I think in the future, what I would like to do in that situation is really spell out what we wanted from that
Yeah,
exchange, and 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 even if they didn't find it obvious, even though it was kind of obvious to us, it wasn't necessarily obvious to them, and I think it was would have been worthwhile saying no. Whoa, before we go into this, the legality of it all, how does that make you feel? You know, this person being taken downstairs by. I mean, that's a fascinating thing. You don't recall whether it was four or five coppers because I imagine the noise and the clatter of these people in your life, sort of battering down the place.
well, yeah, I kind of was already sort of highly distressed. Again, it was what we kind of know now as that sort of autistic meltdown and things. But to then kind of have sort of that on top, and then yeah, I think you kind of go into that sort of dissociative state, don't you, where
Yeah,
you kind
yeah,
of something traumatic's happening, and you just kind of remove yourself from it to keep yourself safe, and that is exactly kind of what happened in that scenario. So that yeah, those kind of finer details are kind of missed. Um, and yeah, and I think that just in itself is quite shocking that even they still seem to think, well, I don't know,
mm,
whether they felt that was appropriate or not, but it just when you really kind of spell it out like that, it's like actually no, it's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Just didn't kind of get that feeling from them at all, which is
So certainly for me in the future, what I will do is say, guys, just wait a second. Let's reflect and
yeah, I mean I understand that obviously they both had some things that they wanted to kind of get
yeah, yeah,
talk
yeah,
about. They
yeah.
did only have a short space of time, I completely get that. But yeah, I think when we're thinking about people's experiences, you don't want people to feel like they're being dismissed or kind of like,
Mm.
well, we'll just move on. It's not important because it absolutely is important, and we need to be talking about these things.
So, but within that space, um, they certainly felt like allies. They felt like they were kind of rooting for us. That
Yeah, yeah,
they were frustrated at this system. Which, I mean, I I, I listened back to it, and you it was really striking when Michael said, he was given 4 hours of training on this,
yeah,
and 2 hour half of it was um, relevant, and half of it was just wrong. And you think, well, what chance do people stand in that environment? How can they engage? How can they do that? And the right person, right care. I mean, it sounds like a lovely thing. The language sounds lovely, but what it feels like is some kind of power struggle where the police are actually withdrawing from mental health care. Where they're saying our job is to deal with crimes and perpetrators of crimes, and certainly not every mental health crisis is their concern. So what's happened is they're saying we don't do it anymore. Local authority and the NHS are saying, shit, we don't have the manpower, we don't have anything to fill that space. So, it's terrifying.
it is, but it kind of goes back to but can the police really refuse to deal with that? Because at the end of the day, they're the only that have the kind of people that have those legal powers to be able to
Yeah,
investigate
yeah,
properly, without kind of having to get that sort of obviously if somebody's in real danger without having to go through all the legal routes and warrants and whatever. So actually, can they really refuse that? And obviously, yes, I get that they feel like it's not their job, but then why are they not pushing back on that? Why are they then not going up to the government and be going, well, actually, we need to change the law on this because this is getting out of hand? Like, why is that not happening?
yeah. I suppose the danger there is you start thinking, people who start saying, well, we were just following orders. We're just doing what we're told, that we're confined by the.
I get that, but at the same time, it's like nothing's going to change unless
Nothing will change. You're absolutely right. People, um, and I think that's what I was hoping about. I was hoping for that pushback with saying, when you see bad practice, when you see bad stuff happening, what do you do? And and Tony took us on a bit of a journey, saying that he attended meetings, he went to places, and he spoke to people, and I mean, he sounded really frustrated that he felt like the outcome of that input from him was precisely fuck all. Um, so you can understand that frustration, I guess. Um, but what? Yeah, I can't help but think this is where this
yeah,
comes in really useful. That we
yeah,
we work together as a group, punters and professionals, and say, look, nobody, everybody is saying this is shit. We it really does need to change.
I just
Um,
want to quickly kind of go back to before because we have a
yeah,
comment on Facebook.
yeah,
So yeah, we've obviously kind of discussed it before there, but it says I'm sure you might get to discussing this, but I was quite shocked at how personal experiences shared last week were met with institutional justification with no sense of empathy.
yeah, yeah. What about you, Sim? What do you think about that?
It feels like as soon as this, it feels like just with social services and with the police, because the laws haven't changed and the training hasn't been updated to for a very long time, it does feel like like they see us as a case number or a criminal before they see us as a human being, and
Okay.
it. I was shocked last week that no, that neither of them asked the most important question, in my opinion. And I know I've said this before, but how are you? How did that make you feel? How and it is such an important question because I personally feel like it could de-escalate a lot of situations as soon as you ask that question.
When you were first told about the situation, what had happened to Siobhan, do you remember how it made you feel?
Yeah, I yeah, it was a bit of a took me a few moments to kind of get my head around the whole story, and I want to say I'm not. I. It doesn't shock me when you said that nobody actually treats you like a human being because the system takes kind of the system, whether it's the police, social services, they kind of stop as soon as they're involved in your situation. They take the human side out of it, and it. When you first told that story to us on the call, I think it took me a few moments to kind of get my head around how they treated you and kind of what they said to your dad, especially, was the biggest shock, if I'm being honest.
Just as a reminder, what did they say, Siobhan?
So yeah, basically that I was being a royal pain in the arse after my dad had asked basically how I was and where I was currently at that moment in time. That she's in there, she's been a royal, but she's been a royal pain in the arse.
That's just, I mean, it's strange, isn't it?
Again, and then they say, you know, I'm getting sort of threatened with being taken to the cells and stuff, you know, in the midst of a mental health crisis. It's bizarre.
I'm thinking back. I was a nursing assistant in a mental health hospital during my holidays when I was doing my degree in psychology. And the first training they gave me, in fact, the main training they gave me was control and restraint. So not relational, not how to de-escalate, not how to.
Trauma
It was.
informed practice.
It was. I mean, to be fair, it was when the world was in black and white and we were still writing with chalk on slate. But I think you know, if people, if that kind of stuff is still going on, if people are still being seen as, I suppose that the thing about control and restraint, it says that these people are dangerous that you're going to be working with, and you're going to have to be able to defend yourself in these situations. And if the only tool you have is a hammer, then everybody's going to look like a nail.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
so so
It was, yeah, I think it was interesting as well, you know, when I had kind of said that, you know, I don't remember at any point did anyone ask me if I was okay.
yeah,
And, you know, if I remember correctly, that was kind of met with, I don't always have the time to do that.
yeah,
But, like,
right,
that should be always something that the thing that you always lead with, regardless of what's going on. Even if it is something that's kind of, like, why, you know, it's just a human thing to do. So that I found a bit strange. And I think that just kind of went back to about, you know, Sim saying that, well, it's kind of taking that human element out of it, isn't it? And just,
It doesn't take the. It doesn't. It takes less than 30 seconds to ask that question.
it takes less than 10 seconds. How are you? Uh, I,
To have that
it,
as an excuse not to
yeah.
ask you that question, I don't think that's good enough.
So
So
I think, you know, it's certainly we you know, I feel sort of culpable within that area and thinking, you know, maybe we should have gone, whoa, slow down with, you know, stuff. Let's think about the incident and think of, you know, and yours will have been like many of these detentions, pseudo dissent detentions, these wrestling people. And I don't know, do you think maybe to keep sane, you kind of almost become immune to it? You know, that each situation, it, yeah, is, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, you know, when I kind of have spoke about it and when I probably first mentioned it to you, is like, I do remember kind of Sim's reaction to that,
Yeah,
you know, how shocked he was. And it is kind of weird. It's like, I find like things have happened to me, like I have become quite detached from it
yeah,
because I feel like I have to, because if I didn't, um, like I guess then the impact that would have on me sort of still reliving that every time I tell that story. But I think and then I forget as well that actually that's not normal, or should not be normal behaviour. But you know, the way that I kind of play it in my head, it's like, well, it's just, you know, it's nothing. Because of that detachment that I've kind of had from it. So yeah.
it almost becomes numb and kind of yeah.
I think about when I was a social worker and we talked about professional boundaries.
Mm.
And I don't think that was ever satisfactorily explained to me what that might be. What is a professional boundary? I mean, maybe not going on holiday to Butlins with somebody, but it felt weird, and there was no discussion of your own emotionality. Is that a word? Your own
Emotional
inner
intelligence.
feelings. Yeah, or even just feelings.
Mm.
You know that you're going to be dealing with some really distressing stuff,
Mm.
and you know you being angry, upset, confused. All of these are valid responses, and I wonder if because they're not mentioned, and somewhere in the background you've got this notion of professional boundary that people don't do. They don't know how to respond.
Yeah,
Um,
potentially. And I guess if you're, when you were talking about, yeah, but obviously the lack of training and that knowledge, isn't it? It goes back to that too.
yeah, it makes me think of I'm going to bore you now with the bystander effect. So there's basically this story. If it tells you nothing else, don't ever trust a psychologist. Is the upshot of this? So there was an experiment whereby the two psychologists queued up for a bus. The first psychologist pretended to fall over and break their leg. Now, the rest of what the second psychologist did, I mean, obviously nobody knew they were psychologists. They weren't wearing a hat that said I'm a psychologist. But what the next psychologist did, really, or the way the crowd reacted, or the rest of the people in the queue, it really depended on what that second psychologist did. So if the second psychologist bent down and went, "Are you okay? Let's make sure you're fine," and all that kind of stuff, then people were more likely to do that to help. But if the second psychologist just stepped over them, people were more likely to step over them, because in what they call an ambiguous situation, people will follow other folk. And I'm wondering, in these, I don't know, situations that you don't feel confident about, like when you're dragging a young woman downstairs, you look to your boss, you look to the guy who's more experienced than you and think, this is obviously what we do. This is our job, pulling young women downstairs. But that's not good enough. Where's the critical thinking? Where's the sort of, hold on a second? I mean, right, okay, let's imagine ourselves into the heads of those coppers. What do you think you would do in that situation? Right. So they go, right, young woman, she's clearly upset. We're going in, guys.
I just like I don't know. It's maybe a bit difficult because it actually happened to me, but like I would understand if there was a real risk to other people, that if I was like brandishing, like waving a knife or a gun or whatever it was, about, there was a real risk that I could harm someone else. Now, I've never been a harm to anyone else. I've been a harm to myself, I know that, but and none of that was present. Nothing, there was no other people at harm or potential harm or anything. So I still kind of racked my brains as to why that was appropriate. Like, and yeah, like, in what shape or form did people think that was going to make the situation better?
Yeah.
Like to me in my head, like seeing, if I was to walk into a situation like that, seeing someone so upset and distressed, I would literally get down to them and sit next to them and actually speak to them and ask them what the hell's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which never happened. They just switched straight to, right, no, that's it. Yeah, it's bizarre.
So, did fear have a place there, do you think? That mad emotional people are scary? I mean, I'm plucking at straws here.
On, like, I'm 5'3".
I know.
Like, come on, like, Jesus. I mean, I know it can get scary, like, but, like, for it to warrant having like 4 or 5 police officers.
I mean, it doesn't, does it? I mean, it's nothing like it. I mean, it's
absolutely fucking insane.
It is absolutely fucking insane.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think my way into this. We talk about them having empathy for you.
Oh, there's absolutely no empathy whatsoever.
I can't empathise with them because I don't think I can empathise with the position that this is what you do in these circumstances.
And it's so scary because there's already a power imbalance. When you kind of the sort of police and just general population, that power imbalance is already there. But that power
Yeah.
imbalance gets even bigger if obviously you're someone that's vulnerable. And the fact that they then are in those positions of power and feel like that it's okay and that they can get away with doing things like that is fucking scary. And yeah, as you'd said before, that it's not just that's just one story, but
Yeah.
hundreds and thousands of other stories that are similar or even worse than that. And that
Well,
again is also scary to think.
from what Tony was saying, there's something like 150,000 of those stories. Some 53,000, I think he said, get detained, and and 2/3 don't. So it feels. Do you think people like us should be involved in that training?
100%, 100%, without a doubt. And I think this is what we've been saying all along. Even just any sort of type of decision making at the top, and again, this goes back to this language that's used. For people that kind of may not necessarily be as illiterate or as kind of sort of intelligent, like sort of educationally, they may not quite grasp that language. Again, it's not making it inclusive because it then does absolutely discriminates against people who would actually be brilliant at that level, but just the kind of maybe the educational part holds them back a little bit. But the actual decision making skills or whatever, or putting things into practice, they might be fucking shit hot at. But
Yeah,
that opportunity because of these other things that they may not necessarily be the best at, and it just completely excludes, us essentially, doesn't it? Just because you don't quite understand some of what's been said in the language because it's not inclusive.
See, I'm imagining a sort of lecture theatre or a room full of us and cops, and you describing the situation that happened, and asking them what would have been going on in your mind. Um,
I mean,
I-
if that's ever an option, I will be there.
yeah,
I'll be
yeah.
up there standing going, actually, wait a minute.
Yeah. I mean, I've spoken to mental health nursing students about this kind of just following orders stuff, and the two things that jumped out for them was they wanted to keep their PIN, which basically they didn't want to lose their professional license. And the other thing was, if I don't support my colleagues 100% of the time as they go charging in like the fucking charge the light brigade, then what happens in other situations where they may be at risk? Maybe people will forget to support them. And then I suppose the other thing was they were thinking, what happens if I want promotion? I'm not a team player. And it's just like, but these are people. You're dealing with people here. It's puzzling, and I think that's why it's essential that we're involved at that frontline training to say, what the fuck?
Yeah.
If you were to meet these guys, what would you like to say to them? Listen, you're in good company here.
Jury meeting?
We're meeting the four cops, the 4/5 cops who dragged you down the stairs. What would you like to say to them?
I would just want to know what their justification was for thinking that was okay, like that was appropriate action to take. And who's leading that? Who made that decision? Why did they then, if somebody had made a decision but they weren't happy with that decision, why did they
Yeah.
basically follow the crowd with that?
And then ask afterwards, after meeting you, after having a discussion with you, maybe sharing that space with you in training, ask them again, would you do the same again?
Yeah.
It's,
I guess there's kind of, I suppose a couple of things that maybe kind of missed that I had to think about afterwards about
yeah.
ask them and actually, what is that reflection, that reflective practice, that supervision, what does that look like for them? What's involved in that? Because I think certainly these sort of situations, that is stuff that should be spoke about. So I would, I kind of wish that we maybe would ask them that, like obviously we were sort of last week, what that looks like for them. But it's.
I certainly know in social work, being a social worker, very often when you're saying I've got all these cases and all this is going on, your manager is very often just focusing on the amount of cases you've got and the amount of cases you can take on. And supervision isn't supervision. It's crowd control. There's no kind of, it's not a therapeutic space. It's not even a relational space often. So if that's happening in social work, and then if you look at mental health nursing, and I think I've said this before, that supervision or getting supervision is seen as some kind of flaw in your personality, that somehow you're not good enough, or you might require further training, and oh my God,
kind of sort of hold into the office.
yeah.
Well, you've not done that right, kind of thing.
But that's a culture that
Yeah.
has to shift.
Yeah.
That, because how else how can that possibly change? So we need to get over the drawbridge under the portcullis and get into those conversations. And so it's we're weird, aren't we, humans? This kind of conformity shit. Just wanting to fit in. Where does that end? Where does that begin and end? What's the future? We have to get in there. We have to humanize ourselves. I think very often we talk about this space, and we talk about how well people should reach out to us. People should be working with us. People should understand what's required. The thing is, they don't. They just don't. And so we have to push. We have to be getting into those spaces and pushing hard. And I think we need to be involved in education of coppers, of social workers, mental health nurses, psychiatrists, all of them, to discuss this fact that we're not others. We are them. Try to get them to imagine themselves in that situation where 5 people come charging into their mate's house and drag them down the stairs.
It just kind of always gets me is the fact that, and again, this is a society, this is a culture, but it's always the negatives. Everything's always so focused on the negatives. Disabled people are this, disabled people are that, or mental illness,
Yeah.
But these are people people who have amazing personalities, amazing qualities and skills. Nobody ever talks about that. Nobody ever talks about actually these people can bring so much to society and have such a contribution. But if it doesn't look the same way as what they want it to, that's the problem. And it just frustrates the hell out of me because there's just so much that they are missing out on.
I think that this constant rhetoric that we're a burden, and I think the other thing is, this notion of professional mad people. I think there's a real danger that people believe that we're in that distressed state all the time. So we'll never be able to integrate into society as human beings because we are so busy being mad, we can't fit in anywhere. And yet, for most people,
But
you
why
know,
should we? But why should we have
bang
to
on,
fit in?
absolutely
Why
bang
should
on.
we?
Yeah,
That's, I think, yeah, I've spent pretty much my whole lifetime of trying to fit in, and I'm at that point where like, why the fuck should I have to?
really, really good point. Because
Because, yeah,
somebody who's following us, she sent me an essay that she'd written, and she said exactly that, Siobhan. And it suddenly made me sort of flip this around and thought, right, okay. We were talking to Sim about uh, accessible environments, that it's not us that are disabled, it's the environment that we live in that's disabling.
yes.
And if
Because
we could,
we spend so much time trying and effort trying to fit into
yeah,
that society that's not built for us, and
mm,
actually in the end just causes us more detriment.
yeah,
But also, when what I have found is instead of helping us become included in society, they put us into our own box and say, you've all got the same disability,
yeah,
you,
yeah,
you guys hang out. And they don't, and they put us then into our separate boxes, and kind of, it's the curfew again. It's kind of saying, right, you fit in this box, you can't then socialize or be part of anybody else's boxes,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
yeah, completely, completely. I think Tony kind of touched on it, that he got a real feeling that people don't give a fuck until it comes a time when, well, they need support, they need not to be detained, they need to be treated like human beings, and then they're thinking, what the fuck? What's happening here? I'm expecting care, compassion, and support from a system that doesn't care. Um,
Yeah, and you can absolutely understand why, because obviously we're so about trying to get people like us together and have collective, because it's the
yeah,
only way that we can help drive that real change. But yeah, if you're kind of living in a society and having to navigate systems that it's basically taking up all your energy and brain power and everything just to kind of deal with day-to-day shit, like, it's no wonder like it's people are kind of finding it hard to try and come together and do that and push against systems because it's fucking hard enough without then trying to be alienated even further.
mm,
Because I've had it myself where if I've had to make a complaint or I've had to push back on things in terms of my care, and then you're just seen as being this problem, this kind of just there she goes again kind of shit.
so your complaint is part of your pathology.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
you're just like, and you can then understand why people then don't kind of pull up other people on bad practice or shit that's going on, because they're like, well, what's the fucking point? You're just going to be painted as being this horrible human being and kind of a black mark against your name. And again, it's that part of that culture, isn't it? And it's frustrating.
incredibly. Um, I think,
to go back to your other question before, yes, we need to be in there.
yeah,
We do need to be pushing back, but it can't just be one or two people. I think we need to do it together.
So, what would be the idea? So if we went back to square one
sure.
and we were asked to design and create a training package, what would be the ideal? Like, what would you guys want as part of the training? If you were asked tomorrow to create a training plan for the police officers, for the social services, what?
That's got my
a
mind.
complicated question.
No, it's not. It's a good, really good question. What do you think, Siobhan?
I mean, from from what it sounds like in terms of the police, I think anything that we would suggest is going to be fucking better than what they've had. So
Yeah,
I think we're already winning there. You need to have people here actually giving their stories, telling their stories, actually them listening to actually what that feels like, for that person that is, whether they get detained or whatever it is, actually sitting, them having to listen to that, because it's not, obviously it's not comfortable, and that is the whole point. Is that if that's how you feel listening to a story like that, imagine how they feel actually living that. So I think that kind of needs to get that sort of point across. But just, it really baffles me the fact that we need to think about just general stuff that should be human nature, that you would, that compassion, that empathy, that, kind of being that sort of trauma informed. Like, it's not rocket science, but it seems to be this huge thing that, I mean, yeah, in so many cases doesn't happen. And again, I don't know if that's just because I am the kind of person I am. I'm genuinely, that sort of very empathic and kind of compassionate person, and that's just human nature and just comes to me naturally. But so I don't know if that's kind of my bias there and saying, well, actually, I think everyone should be like that anyway. But it just, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
My concern is that empathy's knocked out of us. Studies have shown that babies as young as 6 months have empathy for one another. And that's shown if one baby starts crying, they all start crying.
Yeah.
They children who are 1 to 2 years old, if they see somebody crying, they'll pat them on the back, they'll snuggle up to them. My cat Ginger, if I was crying, I've got to say she wasn't the brightest button I ever came across. She used to fight dogs, but if she saw me crying, she'd be on my chest, she'd be purring, she'd be doing that lovely thing that cats do with their claws, and yeah, she'd just snuggle up, and so if they've got that, there's something happening to our professionals that's fucking that up.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, where's that point then that people lose that?
Connection. That feeling of, hold on, these people, yeah,
Being fed the shit that we do in the media.
that could. I don't think it helps.
It doesn't help, no.
Do we start becoming immune to it, like we were sort of saying, professionals become immune to this cascade of noise, and I don't know. But I mean, I worked on oncology in when I was a social worker, and at no point did anybody sort of say this must be hard. You've got people dying around you. It must be a real challenge. There was no. So what you do is you internalize it, and you think, well, maybe somehow being upset is seen as unprofessional. It's it, there was from one of our other podcasts, one of the psychiatrists was saying that while they were in training, there was a woman they were working with. So there's a group of doctors, and it went something like this. I'm paraphrasing. That this patient was crying. They're clearly upset, and their colleague a fellow doctor, had no fucking clue what to do. You know, brain the size of a planet, and they're presented with a really distressed human being, and they didn't know what to do. You know, if I mean hospitals, you're surrounded with hankies. You know, if nothing else, just reach out. But so there's something very wrong that's sort of taking that away from people, and to say it's okay to be upset. This is upsetting. Um,
Yeah, exactly. Because again, it goes back to that sort of disconnect between physical and mental health as well, doesn't it? Because somebody says to you, "Oh, I broke my leg." Oh shit! Really, that must be really annoying. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fuck, that must be, But then, why is that not the same for someone who's like, "Oh, I've had a really shit time. I've been really upset. This has happened. I'm really struggling mentally." But why would you not be saying a similar thing? Why does it have to be this whole issue?
It's quite a long journey, really. What do we want our listener, viewer people to do? What should they be doing when they encounter this shit?
Yeah. I'm not gonna say what I actually really feel in my head. I'm not sure that's quite appropriate, but no, it's fucking hard because, as I said before, trying to navigate sight and systems is exhausting as it is. To then be encountered with even more shit on top, to even have the brain capacity to then do something about that is incredibly hard. But I just feel like, I think from our very first kind of one that we done of this, the amount of people that kind of sort of disabled or sort of mental, kind of sort of mental health issues. So many people have, so many similar stories.
Yeah, yeah.
So many people that want to drive that change. They're sick of the shit that's going on. So I just urge people. I mean, I want people to reach out to us because we want to do this. We want to drive that change, but we can only do it if we all come together collectively.
Yeah, yeah.
And if
Thank you.
Have that kind of strength to push back, because we can't just keep to sit back and accept things the way that they are.
No. And I think you nailed it again when you said it's not rocket science. None of this is rocket science. Anything you want to add, Sim?
Just one quick question. Do we need an independent organisation that can come in and support, that are not social services, that are not police, that can come and support people who have been detained under these sections, who can then kind of help become an advocate in a way, a voice that is independent and that will not judge, who will not kind of, or is that wishful thinking?
Oh, I mean, yeah. Sorry, what were you saying,
No, I
Siobhan?
was just going to say, I think that actually would be leads on to probably a very good conversation for a future.
I think so. A
future live stream, because I think it would be good to actually think about that sort of lived experience, sort of professional body that I know that Chris you had mentioned a number of times in the past sort of conversations, but actually thinking about what that actually means to be a lived and living sort of practitioner, or kind of having that experience and where that all fits in.
Just remind people that they're dealing with human beings, that they're not dealing with some kind of other alien entity. Yeah. Right. Well, we've kind of reached the end of our story this week. There's a group of people that I've got in mind that I'm going to coerce into coming along and speaking to us next time. But yeah, that's been, do you know, that's been uncomfortable, and I really appreciate that. And thanks for both of you sort of stretching this and making me think. It's tricky territory, and if we all want to work together, it's obvious we have to work together. We have to
Yes.
see each other. And
Yes.
so, right, I'm going to call it there. I'm going to say thanks to both of you. I've been Chris Young. This has been What the Fuck with Square Pegs. Who have you guys been?
I've been Siobhan.
Great.
Sim.
Okay, thanks very much, and we'll see you next. Oh God, come on, Chris. Tuesday. Okay,
Okay, yeah.
right. Thanks very much. Bye for now.